We're here in beautiful Meanjin and we thought we'd take a moment. I am with Carlyn, my friend, my mentor, my managing director of our business. And we thought we'd take some time out just to have a bit of a chat about the day ahead and what's been happening.
Thanks, Katriina, and welcome. I grew up in Indigenous, so it's I consider it my hometown.
It's nice to be back. Thank you for having me here too. We've both been doing this work together for a long time now. I mean, 3 years. We just celebrated our 3-year birthday. Go us.
Go us.
Oh, come on.
Oh, I won't leave you hanging.
What still keeps you here?
The work. There is the research reports that keep being published are saying that Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people are not progressing the same way into leadership and decision-making roles as our non-Indigenous colleagues. And so our program actually supports that work. But more importantly, it helps, it actually will make Australia better, having a more diverse experience and thought around the table in our businesses, in our not-for-profits, in our community groups, in our universities. So for me, that's what keeps me going. What about you? What keeps you going?
It's the moments like I think we'll have today when you get the actual people at the table in the room doing the work with us. So we know all the theory and the research why it works. That's our job. And then we finally get to that moment where we're sitting with them and you can see they're a little bit, they're not sure what's going to happen and what's going to, what it's going to be like. And then it's our job to really guide them through that process. And then we get to see their journey unfold for the 6 months. And it's the 6 people who we'll get to work with over the course of the next 6 months.
So the people we meet today at the end of the 6 months tend to be pretty different. We run into a previous participant of one of our programs and he's now so out and sure of himself, still respectful, still a really humble black fella, but so sure of what his purpose and why he walks into a room and what he's doing in his workplace. And to me, that wasn't the person we met 2 years ago. And so I was pretty chuffed when we caught up with him.
Yeah, that's that moment. So we built Warra intentionally for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people to make sure that our workplaces are what they should be for everyone. But what's something that's still happening out there that no one's talking about?
Racism, systemic, conscious, unconscious racism. It is prolific. So our society, a lot of people we'll talk to in workplaces tell us that our workplaces and society in general changed with COVID, that moment in time in 2020. For us as Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people in Australia, it was the vote. No matter what your view is, on the voice and the vote for a voice to Parliament. That seems to be another moment in the history of Australia where it seems to have given permission to people who have very strong and strange views about the superiority and the natural evolution of the human race, and that racism is being perpetuated more and more on our social media to our faces in systems that we live within. And so to me, that's something that we're not talking about enough.
And obviously I can't speak for the lived experience of First Nations people, but on a similar experience, what I see is my family came here at a time when it was all about integration and assimilation. That was the multicultural policy of the time. You're welcome, but integrate. And then I feel like what's happened since the vote, and then even with recent, world events, and also this tendency to talk about, let's celebrate difference and bring your whole self to work. We'll talk about that in a moment. But we've actually given this voice to really bad behaviour towards each other and calling out those differences in a negative way. And the racism to lots of different groups of people has now almost been validated by this behaviour of, oh, well, we're meant to talk about difference, so you're different, you're responsible for what's going on over there in that country, and you're responsible for what's going on in, you know, this part of Australia, and it's just been almost weaponised now.
That's a really good response. It is, and a term, it is weaponised. And we're using our systems to do it, the way our media portrays and documents those differences and then repeats those negative and deep and distasteful kind of generalisations. So for me, it's quite a tough time for anyone who's not the standard Anglo-Saxon white Australian.
Go find one of those anymore these days. If we're, you know, true about the world, most people have got some sort of mixed heritage. I mean, that's
all do, right?
That's Australia, yeah. Like, look at the stats, people. Everybody, you know, has got quite a diverse background. But I agree, there's still these dominant stereotypes, particularly when people use the word leadership. It's this one word that's meant to describe the whole kit and caboodle in one bit, isn't it?
And for us, leadership can be at any stage of someone's life. And so we have these roles we get placed into the workplace that talks about us as being managers or team leaders or supervisors and leaders. And then there's those roles we do in our homes and our communities as leaders. So for me, the leadership spectrum is quite broad, and my style as a leader changes depending on where I'm operating from. What about you? Does your leadership style change?
Gosh, I think it has to change, because I think that's the whole point of leadership is that responsiveness to what's going on around you. It's, you know, I mean, you can read books about adaptable leadership, but it's always been the concept that most resonates with me is it's your job to use your knowledge and wisdom that you've acquired to look at the issue that you're facing and go, what do I think, given my knowledge, is the best way forward, and how do I bring people along with me? So I think that adaptability and agility, I find, is really central to what I think a good leader is, as well as that sense of a responsibility to the world. You know, that sounds very lofty, but it's that collective responsibility and stewardship that we talk about. That's what makes me feel like that person's a true leader, if they take stewardship and accountability for something.
And I think that's really important. Thank you for sharing.
So recently we just had access to the Gariyala report. Did I pronounce that correctly?
I'm not here to judge.
Okay. Well, yeah, when you speak Finnish, I won't either.
Yeah, thank you.
And one of the standout findings in a disappointing way was the extremely high proportion of Indigenous people that still felt unsafe in the workplace, despite all the work that has been done for so many years. Tell me about that.
Look, there are many different reasons that people, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, don't feel safe in our workplaces. Some workplaces don't allow us to bring our whole self to work. Some workplaces are their culture is created in such a way that you aren't allowed to belong to other clubs. And we see that when we're working a lot with the police forces and the military. It's you're either one of us or you're not. And so it really is, there's some tension in our workplaces for people to have to identify where they are and who they are when they're in their workplaces. For me, it's disappointing that our workplaces still aren't safe. They're not psychologically safe. It is one of the fastest growing workplace injuries, is that psychological safety and psychological harm. Look, as a leader, manager, one of the things I encourage us to do, because we're not perfect, you know, we make mistakes, is to do no more harm is the mantra I go in with. So, you know, what are we working with in our workplaces? What do our people need to be able to do the job we pay and ask them to do and return to their own personal lives, whatever that looks like. But yeah, if you put the added lens of do no further harm, do no more harm, the aim is to get everyone home safely every night.
Absolutely. The work that we do in Warra that we talked about earlier, of bringing those people to the table together, the Indigenous people who will participate, the non-Indigenous people who will participate, do you see a connection between what we'll do with them over the next 6 months and increasing that safety in the workplace?
Look, we will. So what Warra will allow people to do is our Indigenous participants, our sponsees, will actually find different strategies and learn different strategies and work out what will work for them. And they'll learn new strategies that they haven't tried yet in the workplace, because we bring those lived experiences, and it's part of that self-discovery journey that we do on the Warra program. For our non-Indigenous participants, our sponsors, who tend to be our sponsors, our senior managers, they're already allies, right? They're already committed. They already have usually more than a base level knowledge of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander cultures and histories and ways of working. But what I tend to find after they do our program is that they have learnt more. We provide a framework on how to talk to people, because as Aboriginal people, we're not a homogenous group. So we're quite different. So, you know, how I want to be worked with and spoken to in a workplace will be different to another Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander colleague. And so it's a framework we give our sponsors on how to work with the diversity within their workforce and find the strength in it and work with the strength in it. So for me, I see the change, the cultural uplift that the sponsors, our non-Indigenous participants get. They get this really lovely cultural journey wrapped around by both the staff member they're partnered with and paired with, but also the work we and our team of people do, coaching and supporting them.
And I think that uplift of the sponsor capability is the secret sauce in our program and how we've designed it, isn't it? Because often with things like this, people might assume that it's about building the capability of the sponsee, and they do it with women's programs all the time in deficit-based thinking. You need more of this, you need more of this. But I think you've named the real magic in this, which is actually the non-Indigenous person is given the ability to go on their own personal learning journey about what they can do differently or better, and they can learn how to ask questions in a respectful way and grow their own knowledge, and then step into their accountability to do something different, and they really learn how to do that. Because I think there are a lot of people, who have that classic diversity challenge where they go, I'm a big supporter, I'm a big ally, but then there's no action.
Well, what does that allyship actually look like? And so one of the kind of cream on the cupcake moments of the program is that when our senior leaders, our non-Indigenous colleagues, our sponsors actually have that aha moment where they go, I get it now. I get what I've been doing, which isn't wrong, it's just different, but I get what I can do better. And they go away, and it ripples throughout their organisations. It ripples throughout the teams they then lead. It ripples through the work they do with stakeholders externally, how they work with, their business lines and their external suppliers. It's a different sort of leader graduates from the Warra program.
Absolutely. And I think any work, when you do it at this level, has hopefully those ripple effects for not only the individual but the team, the organisation. We do social impact reporting, and that I would love to even measure the impact on the industry, and maybe it flows into communities and families. I mean, if certainly when we're working with women, when people come home from work and they're more positive and they're more engaged, that has an impact on the whole family as well. And, it's so layered, those ripples.
You're right. It would be great to measure. We know anecdotally that there's an impact, but it'd be great to measure that in a more empirical data set to really prove to corporate Australia and other organisations the value of sponsoring and self-awareness and that understanding your leadership legacy.
So you mentioned leadership before, and with all the effort that allegedly gets put into increasing the number of Indigenous people in leadership, why do you think we don't have more in Australia?
We don't have more Indigenous leaders in Australia because we're not the decision makers. If we want to put more people in decision-making roles, we need to actually either make a chair beside us at tables in corporate Australia and not-for-profit in politics, or we need to actually offer up our seat and step away.
Whoa.
Yeah, so leadership and having an Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander voice in businesses in corporate Australia and on boards around Australia, for me, is about people understanding when they look around their room the diversity and the power that comes with that diversity, and if they're a voice that's not being heard within their organisation. We find that with women and the gender balances that the Australian government is trying to roll out in a lot of our boards around the country, and that reporting for gender balance, for me, we need to do something similar for Aboriginal Australia if we really want to make a difference.
And I think also there's a lot of focus on measuring leadership as the measure of success.
Yep.
But, well, A, at what point do you even become a leader? But B, what about the years beforehand? And you and I have, lived through those years, those tough years in your 30s and 40s, the mid-career years. And if you lose people in those mid-career years, then the pipeline's pretty drained of people to even become a leader. And I think we just don't focus enough on mid-career. It doesn't sound like a sexy term. It's not. It's certainly not for the people who are going through it. You've got everything happening. You're trying to build up your home situation, whatever that might be. You might be trying to move out of home. You might be, forming partnerships. You might be having kids. You might have elderly people. It's all happening, and yet we're focused on people in leadership. Well, if you don't survive those mid-career years, then you ain't going to be up there. And I'm talking much more loudly about visibility, because it's if you're invisible in that part of your journey, then you just kind of have this slow drift off to the sidelines.
That's such a good point, that mid-career professional stream and how to support them while they balance their life, their community, their work obligations, and everything in between. I'm glad that they've got programs like Warra and Willow. It does teach a framework. It does provide strategies. It provides, ones you can use today and ones you can use in 2 years' time when you go, oh, that's right, I did learn about this, and it's now time to implement this approach to my career.
And I think for the organisation, it's that understanding that you need to throw a floodlight on these people. I heard this saying that, not just a spotlight on one, but throw a floodlight over this generation of people, and then really help them to uplift for the people themselves to be able to talk about their ambitions and their aspirations, and for that to be heard, and for that aspiration to actually be heard and then to become visible in the organisation. And then suddenly you realise everyone who you have available to you, and you can cultivate that environment and the leadership accountability to help lift them up, rather than just hoping that merit will sort the cream out to the top. It's what if people actually had an obligation to help build pathways to help people live through the organisation?
Oh, look, merit's a really good term. Merit, we are all capable of doing a job if we are sponsored and coached and supported and provided an opportunity to sit on that task force, to act as a senior manager in a region, to take opportunities. We will all be found meritorious given those opportunities in our workplaces. It's who you know that gets you those opportunities. And then it's once you get in there, it's you making it count.
Yeah. People don't lack capability, they lack visibility.
I think that's a really good point.
So for our friends listening out there, if you could give someone wondering what to do next one red hot tip, what would it be?
I've thought about this quite a lot, and the tip would be self-discovery. I know that sounds very cliched, but doing the work on yourself and understanding who you are, how you turn up to work, who you want to be, who you want to grow into, who would your ancestors and your descendants be proud of. So to me, doing the work and that whole self-discovery and giving yourself permission and time to do that self-discovery work. So yes.
I love that you've gone deeply internal, and I think that's a really important piece of the puzzle. So I might be the yin to your yang.
Thank you.
I think that I would encourage all those people wondering what they can do and then doing nothing to really pause and look for the quiet people in their sphere, or not even in their line of sight, and go and be more intentional about getting to know the quiet people and discover what's invisible to you. So you need to take the accountability. If you're a leader saying that I want to be a supporter and an ally, you need to take the accountability to go and discover what other people have to offer in your organisation that you don't know about, because they might not be speaking up because it's culturally inappropriate. You know, there are many different cultures aside from just Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander cultures where it is not okay to be loud and verbose. That's not your style. So I think I would encourage people to, if you have the influence, I would encourage people and leaders to use that influence to go and find somebody who might be a bit different to you.
Thank you.
In my introduction, when I introduced you, I intentionally used the word my mentor, and people might wonder why, because we run a sponsorship program. But I did mean that because I think for me it's the difference between someone who you know helps to guide and give advice, and you do that for me all the time in this program. But as you think about our sponsorship program, I guess, what do you think is that next step? What's the difference with a sponsor? Like, what will our people who are starting on their journey today be doing differently?
So I love that we mentor each other. I did hear that at the beginning. We do mentor each other because we have different strengths. You've been a businesswoman for over 10 years and has successfully run businesses. I learn from you every time we meet to talk about our business and our business model. And so I'm glad I'm part of your mentorship. For me, what happens between mentoring and sponsorship, and that difference for me is the mentoring is something that where I get to share my stories with you. The sponsorship is actually creating opportunities for you to step through. And that's, you know, you and I have a number of different ideas on how to grow our business. But me opening some of those doors in the spaces that I operate in, and letting you and inviting you in and letting you be part of the process and listening, or having a voice is part of the way I sponsor you, not just the mentoring and the sharing of stories and knowledge, but there's a deeper, more vulnerable yet respectful step that I do to acknowledge what I think your future looks like is by creating opportunities for you to shine.
And that opportunities word, I think, helps to nail it. I think mentors support and coach and maybe guide, and sponsors really activate and take action and create opportunities.
Definitely. On that note, it's time to go and work.
I know.
We've got opportunities.